What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up, what up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up? What's up? Welcome back to Rebel Radio. If you missed last week, it was our 1-year anniversary episode with the great Claude Von Stroke. Go back and check that out. And this week, we're back with Eddie Cruz, co-founder of Undefeated, the famed sneaker shop and streetwear line all over the world. He's on with my sometimes co-host, Adam Weissman from Stussy and from the band Pollen. If you like Adam, go back and check out our episode with him and Roy Choi from a few months back. I think you'll like that too. Eddie's going to give us some great insights into his journey from the Bronx to the beginning of the streetwear business, where he and James Jebbia from Supreme were both working at the same store, and they kind of learned the business from the streets, if you will, to moving to LA and opening one of the most important boutiques in streetwear around the world. He's now got, I think it was 7, or he'll tell you. He's got stores all over the place. He's going to put us up on some emerging trends, the return of zines in fashion, and how he goes about staying out of jumping on trends and really making sure the brand stands for something. We're also going to get a sneak preview into the new brand UNDD and learn more about that. And now let's hear from Eddie Cruz and Adam Weissman. I mean, but it was like, it's not even the show, it's just that many people just like moving in unison, you know?
Yeah.
It's cool.
I'm so happy Coachella exists. I heard that they're doing like an old man Coachella in October.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
But who plays?
If they can get them, the Who, Rolling Stone,
like those, like
Right.
that.
Stevie Wonder,
Right.
Which they always
Really old
manage to incorporate. They always incorporate like one or two at Coachella. You know,
They do like a whole show of that.
yeah. Now it'll be a whole show, and
Right.
maybe less hectic for the.
It'll be
60th,
less
you know.
hectic, but the tickets will be more expensive.
Yeah, of
and,
course.
like, it'll all be VIP, and everyone will sit on lawn chairs.
Well, that's what I was. So I went to visit clients right after Coachella, right? Because I have a marketing agency, so I, go see clients. I'm like, you gotta get out there and see this. If not Coachella, you got to go to some of this stuff, right, and see that, there's 16-year-olds, and 60-year-olds, and there's rich dudes, and there's everybody.
It's everything.
Right?
No
And,
poor dudes though at Coachella.
No, there's definitely some.
yeah, there's like you saved up everything, and we're at Ice Cube, and literally the dude next to me is a gangbanger, tattoos on his head, right, trying to fuck with his phone, and the 60-year-old white lady next to me just dancing, like tripping out,
Crazy.
and right, it's all of America and the world comes to do this shit, and everybody does it in their own way. So one guy's in the VIP with the commissary meal, and other kids are sneaking food in, whatever.
Yeah. I've never been.
My favorite part
I
is
need to go.
to lay on the grass in the back of a headliner show and just like look at the moon. It's fucking
We did
dope.
that during David Gilmour a
That's
few
so
years
dope.
back.
Just hear it and you just like look at the moon, and they got the crazy light show and shit.
So how'd you get into music? Where's that come from? Did you always?
I mean, music has always been part of the industry that I'm in.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like the driving force in terms of, kids coming in.
But were you into music like as a kid? Were you? Was that,
Yeah,
like, your
I
thing?
was. I don't know if I told you this, but I had I was into a style of music called Latin hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
They also called it freestyle. Bands like TKA, Noel.
Nice.
Expose,
K7?
Cover
Yeah.
Girls,
Hell
like
yeah.
that. K7, yeah, exactly. It's funny because he sent me, I just found out that he knows my cousin, so he sent me a birthday song. He sang happy birthday to me in a song, and I was like, wow.
Is that right?
In the 80s, he was a big inspiration on me and my crew.
That's dope.
So from that aspect, I mean, yeah, like, because I was just going to the clubs, and I was like super inspired by that music.
Yeah.
So I of course, tried to do that music, but,
Yeah.
you know, failed at it.
You were trying to make music?
I was trying to make music.
Oh,
yeah.
shit.
Had a little crew called Code 2 with a K. And, you know, we had a synthesizer. We had a MIDI 4-track.
Yeah.
You know, we had a, you know, echo. You know, we had all that stuff. Whatever was available
Right.
to us. Everything on credit card. Me and my boy David. And we were writing music and making beats. And we'd bring in people who we thought were singers to try to sing, and we try to shop it. There was a guy named Andy Panda Tripoli. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Nah.
So Andy Panda Tripoli, like he was the king. Like he was like the #1 producer of that whole genre. Produced like Cover Girls,
Okay.
Expose, like so.
This is out of New York?
He's out of New York. Yeah.
But you were in New York at the
I
time?
was in the Bronx. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm born and raised in the Bronx. I
Okay.
came to LA in like the early '90s. So
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was like my first like real passion for it. While hip hop was going on, you know, the Puerto Ricans, like we were making Latin hip hop.
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
what we were supporting, you know.
Sure.
So that was our answer to hip hop. It was called Latin hip hop, more of a freestyle feel. In fact, I think like if you listen to Unfinished Symphony by Massive Attack, is that song? Is that that incredible
Yeah.
song? Yeah, like that beat, like dun, 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 you know, like I forget how would you even describe that?
It was. I think it's the drum and the bass.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just it's just like a certain way to dance, and it's kind of romantic.
It's sort of like it was sort of like
romantic.
Latin R&B, in a way.
Yeah.
Like it was
Yeah.
their version of like
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
sort of dancier.
yeah, yeah. And there was
R&B.
one dude named Noel
Okay.
who really stood out. Noel Pagan, a Puerto Rican cat, good-looking dude, green eyes. You know, Puerto Ricans didn't have green eyes, and we didn't have straight hair. So this guy's up on stage, really inspired by Depeche Mode.
Okay.
I was really into Depeche Mode as well, like in the '80s. He was super inspired by Depeche Mode, but when he came out and did it, that really like showed me like, oh man, this is cool. Like you don't like you come from the Bronx, you come from the hood. You don't have to dress like this. You don't have to dress like that. You could actually break out of that. He would have
Right.
an MC jacket on, a white tee, Levi's with MC boots, and I had never seen like that's not how Puerto Ricans or people were dressing in the Bronx. And this kid from the Bronx was up on stage at 1018.
Yeah.
If you've ever heard of 1018, which is formerly the Roxy.
Okay, yeah.
So the Roxy was a roller skating rink, which turned into a hip hop club eventually. It was like the melting pot. It was like a melting pot, you know, like kids from uptown, kids from downtown. It was like punk and hip hop were like clashing, but everyone was getting together, and it was an awesome scene.
That was in the Bronx.
That was in Manhattan.
Okay.
Like, that's the thing. Like I was telling Adam, even though I was coming up while hip hop culture was evolving, I was also at the same time trying to avoid it because it reminded me of where I came from, and I was trying to escape the Bronx.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they would have these jams everywhere, and all my boys were like, yo, we going to this jam at the park. And what that means, if you don't know what a jam is, you know, like one crew would set up on one side, another crew would set up on the other side, you'd plug into the lamppost, and then they'd have these battles. Maybe I went to one or two, but for the most part, I was like, nah, this ain't me. I want to get out of this. You know, I was really interested in seeing what was going on in Manhattan, which was a big deal for a Bronx
Sure,
kid, you know,
for sure.
when you're born in the Bronx and you're raised in the Bronx, you usually end up going to school in the Bronx,
Right.
working in the Bronx, and dying in the Bronx.
Yeah.
It's like the 70s over there. Even now, when I go back, I feel like it's the only part of New York that that still has that old school feeling. You know, people playing dominoes outside the grocery stores. And, kids not really caring too much about like all these trends that are going on in terms of fashion and stuff. I think people are just keeping it real. You know?
Interesting.
It's just poor people who work hard.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily dangerous. It's a little intimidating. I could see that, especially like me. Now I live in Cali. I live in cushy Glendale. You know, so my dad lives in this really rough neighborhood in the Bronx, Pell Parkway area.
Okay.
But in reality, everybody's working.
Yeah.
And everybody just looks threatening. But the
Yeah.
fact is, it's all good. you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah. It's funny. Well, you know, I know you're now a fashion mogul, we're going to call you. But, you know, the way you present yourself, the way you look, right, it says so much about who you are, even though that's not always true,
Yeah.
right? And so, you know, you could put on that uniform,
Yeah.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
I remember I took my wife to Belize for our anniversary
Yeah.
one year, and we're in this little small town in Belize,
Yeah.
like a village. no paved roads, no chain hotels, none of that. And the dudes there are all gangstered out, like
In Belize.
in Belize.
Right.
And they're like jeans. I mean, shorts hanging off.
Yeah.
And they look like gangsters, from 10 years ago here, and super nice.
Yeah.
They don't even know what a gangster is,
Yeah.
but that's the uniform.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They were inspired by the fashion of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's usually like how things go now.
For sure.
So
Yeah. And I was even back to the Bronx. I was watching Rebel Kings.
Kings.
Did you watch it?
Yeah.
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 It was good.
Yeah, but even then, the fashions just jumped out for me. Like that was part of
Yeah.
the
That was
story
more
was
70s,
amazing.
right? Like 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
I was super young when that was going on, but
For sure.
I can distinctly remember just everyone wearing like cut off Levi jackets with gang,
Right.
like gang names on the back, like Black Spades,
Yep.
Savage Nomads, the Javelins, the Latin Skulls. It was crazy,
Yeah.
So I definitely grew up around that.
So what made you? I mean, it's a little, I think it's interesting to say that you wanted to get away from that and see what else was going on out there. Like
Yeah.
that seemed like most of your friends were probably not thinking that way.
No, most of them weren't. Most of them were, and I'm not dissing anybody, but a lot of people were smoking. They were doing drugs,
Sure.
they were smoking weed. There was definitely, like, if you're in the Bronx, like, there's no hope. Like,
Right.
it's just, when I graduated high school, the first thing my mom and dad handed me were applications to, like, hey, here, become a sanitation
Right.
department worker.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
For sure.
But it was about, hey, get a good, get your high school diploma, get a good job with benefits.
Yeah.
And that's what it was all about.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I filled out Department of Sanitation. I filled out Post Office. I filled out FDNY. I filled out NYPD.
Wow.
In fact, I almost became a cop.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I went through the whole process, and something went wrong.
What was the turning point?
In terms of what?
Like, what made you not go down that path?
Man, this is gonna sound really corny, but I was working for a shoe store called National Shoes when I was 16 years old. My brother was the manager, so he brought me in. And there was a dude there that just dressed dope every day, like the right tie, really inspired by the movie American Gigolo. I don't know if you guys remember that, but
Yeah, of
Richard
course,
Gere,
Richard
like
Gere.
his gear, like that movie had a real impact on like kids, like in general, like, oh
Yeah.
man, you can dress like that, and did that exist? And then I think that's when I first learned about the magazine GQ.
Uh-huh.
So I would start
Yeah, me
buying
too.
GQ. So for me, buying GQ was a big deal.
Yeah.
So I was just going through the pages, looking at advertisements, seeing brands like, oh man, there's all these stores, like, but they're not in the Bronx, and I didn't understand what was going on. I was just shopping at like all these mom and pop like disco shops. Get my polyester pants and my dress shirts,
Right.
etc. And I would have to say, yeah, GQ was like the porthole to like escaping the Bronx and getting on a train and actually like going to Soho and visiting like stores like Comme des Garçons
Yeah.
and Issey Miyake and Masuda. And I ended up begging for a job at a place called Parachute.
Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right? And Parachute is a Canadian brand. And in the 80s, it was on some high fashion military tip. And it was the coolest place to work. I applied 3 times, and I finally went in.
And how old are you now?
Maybe I was like 17 years old,
Okay.
18,
Okay.
I'll say 18 years old. Yeah, so it was just the coolest place to work. Like, if you got what really attracted me about this place, Parachute, was they were using all the employees as models.
Right.
So when you're a 17, 18-year-old kid, that's really impressionable. You're like, whoa, if I work there, I can be in a magazine potentially. And that's actually what was happening.
huge.
I got to do a photo shoot, and it's funny because it was Keith Haring was involved. I put my head through this Keith Haring piece that he did, and that was the photo shoot.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, and I got to meet Keith Haring, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
and that was like my introduction to like, yeah, you know what? I finally escaped the Bronx. I realized, like there's definitely more out there. You can get stuck. You can become super provincial minded.
Sure.
If you don't,
Yeah.
if you don't break that barrier. And luckily, like I said, like I had some people around me who were fashion conscious, introduced me to things like magazines like GQ and stuff like that. And yeah, just figured it out.
Yeah. And so, did you know from then? Obviously, you were thinking about music before that, and police work. Like, did you know, like from that moment, was there a moment where like the light clicked on? You're like, this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, a store. I mean, I'll just fast forward to 1989. A store called Union opened in Soho, and Union was, in my opinion, the first store in America to offer clothing for like-minded people like myself, like kids that were into new shit, shit that you couldn't just find anywhere in an environment that played really good music. Like they were very conscious of the music. So that was the first time I had ever experienced that, because all the retail shops I had worked for, they were just playing radio.
Right.
But in this store, the music was curated. So, yeah, like Union, and when I started managing Union, and then eventually I became a buyer for it. That's
Back up.
sure.
Before Union opened, you were
That's
like, I guess. How did you know the story of how Union sort of came about?
Yeah,
'Cause that
I
came out
totally
of you
do.
guys.
Yeah. So basically, one of my best friends, and I don't mean to name drop, but he owns Supreme. His name is James Jebbia. Him and I met when we were 18. We both applied at Parachute the same week.
Oh, funny.
And we got the job the same week. And we were like, hey, look at you blonde, you blue-eyed British man, and like this Puerto Rican kid from the Bronx. Like,
Right.
it just didn't make any kind of sense, But, we hit it off. This guy was super ambitious. Definitely showed me like what a good work ethic is. He was the best salesman in the store. He made the most commission, which explains why he's Mr. Supreme today. He always had that drive and ethic.
Right.
So we had a really cool boss. His name was Morgan Allard. He let James, while he was managing the Parachute store, eventually we became managers of these stores. Just to let you know, I fast forward to that as well.
Okay.
So he let James start a flea market business. And in Soho, like they were on on Worcester and Spring. There's a 7-day-a-week flea market there. It's still set up today. You can go there today, and it's still there.
Yeah.
So James actually got a booth and was just buying stuff in the garment district and reselling it. And eventually, he started producing his own clothes. And how him and I became really connected was my mom had a factory on 38th and 7th, and she was doing all the production for him. Like he was making, it was during the Daisy Age, like when Soul to Soul and De La Soul and all that stuff was popping off. That was real inspiring to him.
Right.
The name of the first brand was called Blast.
Okay.
And it stood for Blast from the Past, because everything felt 60s, because it
Yeah.
was like the Daisy Age. Like
Right.
really, like that's, it's crazy. Like a lot of people I don't know if people think about that, but De La Soul had a real impact, like on hip hop culture. Like it was the first. I think it was one of the first. They were one of the first groups to shift away from like Eric B and Rakim.
They were like
sound
they were
and-
alternative.
Yeah,
in
they
the
were
world
more
of hip-hop.
alternative.
They were
and it was. I don't want to call it smarter to say Eric B and Rakim were doing dumb shit, but it just was more conscious rap. With incredible beats. And more fun. Like, whoa, this doesn't have to be so serious all the time. And that's what we liked about it. But it really inspired. Like James and his partner and the people at the flea market and Union, whatever. But so really it all started at a flea market business because, we're all poor, we're not, no one was born with money.
Sure.
But how do you get it? You gotta grind, So he figured out a way to do it. And the easiest way to make his way through like his life or career was starting this flea market business, making his own product. He completely understood that it's all about markup. You make it for $6, you sell it for $30, and it's a quadruple, 5 times markup. And you're doing $2,000 a day. You eventually you have $50,000 saved, and then friends come together and maybe throw in some money to help you open up the store. And that was the community we had back in the late '80s, early '90s, and hence Union opened.
Yeah.
But it stemmed from a flea market.
So where was the jump from like sort of this like blast from the past to what Union eventually opened with, which was probably more T-shirts, hats, outerwear?
Believe it or not,
Or was Union different at the beginning?
it was different at the beginning because I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about streetwear a little bit, but streetwear really didn't exist. There was no term streetwear.
Right.
You know, it was just
Not at all.
so what Union started out was with a bunch of British brands. You know, like a brand called Duffer of St. George. Gosh, I wish I could remember the other ones.
Mooks?
Yeah, Mooks was actually an Australian brand.
Okay.
We touched that a little bit. It was very 60s mod. It's like a mod,
Right.
like a real mod feeling, and it was cool. Like that at that time, like Delight was happening. Like they were shopping in there.
Yeah.
The De La Soul kids were coming in. The Diggable Planet kids were coming in because there was nothing. I mean, it just did not exist.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
How did word get out? There was no internet either.
Well, James, you know, was smart. He was taking out small ads, you know, because back in the day, yeah, there was no internet.
Right.
You'd have to take ads. You have to earn it. And
Yeah.
Kids were into the art of discovery. They were just into like you can't see it anywhere, so you got to walk around and, you know, word. You know, it was really about word of mouth. You know.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting shift you're talking about, like where, you know, because we're probably close to the same age, and you know, I discovered GQ as
Thank
a
you.
teenager. But you know, I remember that where like there was definitely fashion coming from the streets, or like being dictated from the streets.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, at the same time, it was coming from movies, from magazines, right? And it was a lot less clear
Yeah.
than maybe now,
Yeah.
where like there's this streetwear industry and
Yeah.
there's this, you know, all these blogs and whatever can tell you what to wear.
Yeah.
That's just for the streets,
Yeah.
right? And you know, I wonder where that sort of that shift occurred.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you.
Okay.
I mean, so basically, you're right. There were no specific clothing brands made for kids who go to clubs and hang out on the streets.
Right.
You had to be inventive. You had to be inventive
put
with
shit
what
together.
existed. Yeah,
Right.
You just put shit together. Like you were rocking Lee jeans with sewn down seams.
Right.
You were rocking the right Pumas. You were rocking the right Adidas shell toes or the Stan Smiths or
Mm-hmm.
Air Force Ones, whatever it may be. I said Timberlands, right? Yeah, Tim's was a big deal. North Face jackets,
Yep.
Helly Hansen. You just had your own sense of style. Morel boots. So I mean, that was like a glorious time.
Yeah.
But from a business perspective, what what was happening was, so younger kids started to realize, like, man, like all these brands are, like, this is what all our kids are rocking, like in the hood, uptown, Brooklyn, wherever it may be. Why don't we just start making stuff for ourselves, you know, in a real way? And we didn't want to call it streetwear. No
Right.
one wanted to call it streetwear. That's just the name that came a little bit later. And I blame Carl Kanai and I don't want to say Nietzsche and Mecca and Fat Farm. I blame them
Yeah.
for the term streetwear and for kind of ruining like this cool underground scene that was happening, and you know, for
Yeah, 'cause those guys-
they were more hip hop clothing.
yeah, those clothes were just like, hey, let's make money.
And,
Yeah.
and
You
before
know,
that,
that's what that
Take
felt
it
like
mainstream.
to me.
but
That's what
before
that,
that,
felt like to me.
Union was a collection of, you know, you were like, oh, Delight and Diggable Planets are
Yeah,
quite different if you
Yeah.
look at, you know, their fan base. And
Yeah,
it was sort
right.
of this, you know, Union was a group of people coming together. It wasn't only hip hop. It was, you know, a mix.
yeah.
It was,
Adam Weissman, what are you wearing around this time?
I don't know how.
Were
I
you
mean,
born?
Well, you were young
I was young.
by that.
I was really into Stussy.
Okay.
Like when Stussy came out,
Yeah.
was like a huge deal, and I was definitely influenced by what was going on hip hop wise. But I could never pull it off. Like I remember when everyone was into wearing overalls.
Right.
Like I had a pair and I never wore them.
Yeah.
When everyone was in like to the black college sweatshirts, like I remember taking my dad to like every Champs sport in like the city, and I bought one and I never wore it because I was like it's not me. Like
Yeah.
So, you know,
That's good presence of mind at that age.
Stussy was the one that made sense to me for some, you know,
Yeah.
and Union went like before the Stussy store opened.
Right.
I would go to Nordstrom because they had a huge Stussy selection.
Okay.
And I remember even as that was going on, and the guys who worked at Nordstrom, I had like a guy there that would be like, yo, we're getting this in, I'll save it for you. And I'd like either take the bus down Pico to the West Side Pavilion, or I'd get my mom or whatever to like take me over there at some point. But then I remember the guy there was like, oh, there's a Stussy store in Laguna Beach.
Oh, wow.
Like, and I remember I went there once. Like, we were in Laguna Beach for something else, and I was like, I had to like beg my dad, like, can you just wait in the car, or like let everyone wait in the car, come in with me, like, And then when the store opened in L.A., it was like, all right, I don't have to go to Nordstrom. Like, I remember the guy like, oh, they're opening a store. I was probably like 15. I don't think I could drive. I was 14 or 15 at the time. But I used to go in, like, I think right when it opened. Yeah. And that was that. It was because what the Stussy store, or Stussy Union, when it first opened, had the music that I was listening to. And it had, like, the staff was like the cool kids that you wanted to sort of hang out with, that were up on things that, sort of in a way like you'd go to a blog now. Yeah. You'd go and hang out with like Dace and Edwin, and like they'd put you on.
Those were the
like,
chat rooms, like the clothing stores that were opening up.
Yeah. Well, and that's what it was so different. Like, I remember, I think it was so different walking into a store and seeing your peers behind the counter. Yeah. Right. And I remember, so I grew up in San Francisco, and like all the girls worked at Esprit. Yeah. Like all the girls from our high school, like that was like the cool summer job or whatever after school job. Like, so, I wasn't wearing Esprit, but like that was like the thing, right? Yeah. But for the most part, like you'd go into a store, I'd go shop at Macy's for the stuff I saw at GQ, and it's like some old lady, it's like my mom waiting on me and like asking me, are you gonna buy something, or can you get out of here? Like, and so I think this part of that streetwear thing was like being around peers.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's still kind of the same today, and that's. I always said that, like, how could I live my lifestyle? How could I start a business, but at the same time live my lifestyle? Yeah. And
was that a thought early on?
That was a thought early on. Like, I just always wanted to. I mean, I've been really fortunate. I've been able to. I mean, I'm not making millions. I'm just making a nice living, but I'm also getting to live my lifestyle without compromising, like, what I believe in.
That's huge.
So for me, like that was key. Yeah. And I think it's a good motto for kids like today, like if they want to, like,
for sure,
build a foundation, start a brand, but like get behind it, like make it, like, be about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so just talk about how the vision sort of crystallized. Was it like, I'm curious how much of this stuff you knew sort of from the beginning as you look back, or how much of it is like lessons you pick up.
That's the thing, like, no one knew anything, man. It was just evolving. It was just happening, Let me take you back a little bit, like a little bit before what Adam was talking about, like when LA opened up Stussy, because Union was one of the first stores on the East Coast to carry Stussy. Right. So Union introduced Stussy to like New Yorkers, like that's what really put it in kids' heads. And then we started seeing brands like, oh man, Fresh Drive. What is that? Yeah. Like, what is this? It was all coming from the West Coast. And people on the East Coast were super receptive to it. Con Art, a brand called Con Art. Remember Con Art? Pervert. Yeah, well, Pervert was coming out of Miami, but a lot of it, I mean, if I had to pick a place where hip hop really started, it really started on the West Coast, and it probably started with Stussy, because.
What do you mean modern? Like sort of this.
Well, yeah, like it was like the first brand outside of like a major corporation, right? Without being like North Face or anything like that, to like take a chance and do things. Like, sure, it came from surf roots, but because of who the designer was, like it was about his lifestyle. This guy was traveling. This guy was into music. Yeah. This guy was a dope artist, and he loved dressing up. So, like, he's a perfect example. Like, Sean did get to live his lifestyle through his business. Sure. So, so Stussy was definitely a big inspiration.
I think what I don't know is interesting about Stussy is it sort of mirrored the music. It was this DIY thing where it was sampling from from high and low
Yeah.
the same way you'd make a rap song. You'd
Yeah.
sample from different records and
Yeah.
put it together and make something that was unique, and that was sort of what Stussy was doing.
Yeah.
And it would, people could sort of look at
Yeah.
it and find something that
Yeah.
that spoke to them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and then from a New York perspective, kids getting inspired, with kids being inspired by like Stussy and by, Pervert and all that stuff, we'd have kids walking into the shop with boxes of their new clothing brand.
Right.
Like the PNB Nation guys. I don't know
Yeah,
if you remember
yeah.
that brand,
Sure.
PNB Nation.
Brew.
Like once upon a time, that was just a really tiny, conscious brand.
Yeah.
That was amazing, and we were everything was COD back in the day, especially with these young brands. Futura would walk in with Stash and say, "Yo, here's 2 boxes. We just did these Phillies blunt tees," and we're like, "Okay, we'll take them." So we were like literally a lot of our buying was from kids coming in with their new brands from the streets,
Right.
And I mean that was cool, and
Which
it was
is
like,
pretty much unheard of, like, at
Yeah.
least at that time. Like,
Yeah.
you didn't do that. You didn't walk into Macy's
no,
and go, let
no,
me
no.
show the buyer my new
Yeah.
collection.
No, but everyone knew Union was the platform. Like if you made it into Union, it kind of
Yeah.
co-signed your brand,
Yeah.
and then you got to go other places, and then eventually other boutiques around the country started opening, which is what brought me to LA, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah,
So why'd you move here?
business opportunity.
Yeah.
I learned everything I could learn from James and working at Union, and the Stussy shop was open in New York as well. So I was bouncing back and forth between there. I had a friend who moved here. I was visiting her quite a lot, and I actually fell in love with the city.
Nice.
Like the city completely seduced me.
Yeah.
When
As she
you come-
does.
Yeah, when you come from the Bronx and everything is, pavement and dirty and loud, and you're here in the early 90s, and it was really vacant
Yeah.
in the early 90s. I don't know if you guys remember.
For sure.
But like it was like you could walk blocks and not see people. Now,
Oh, yeah.
now that's completely changed. But so that's what brought me out, and I saw a void in the market. I mean, there was a store called Funk Essentials on 3rd Street. They were carrying Stussy, they were carrying Fresh Jive and all that stuff.
Right.
But we were going to do something different. We were going to do something called the Stussy Union. We were going to combine 2 stores, a brand which wasn't large enough to have its own store yet, Stussy, and a store called Union, which carried which was a multi-brand store. On one side of the store, we had photographs by this LA-based photographer Mike Miller, which is who Stussy used quite a lot back
Sure.
then. Was that his name, Mike
Yeah,
Miller?
Mike, yep.
Remember Mike Miller?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one side of the store would be Mike Miller representing Stussy. The other side of the store would be Futura. Futura did 10 beautiful pieces, and I remember we paid like $500 each because back in the day,
That's cool.
it was just
That's what it was.
that's just how it was. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to get into art, but like all the art you end up owning is from your peers.
Yeah.
And then they end up being something,
Right.
which is really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I still have those 10 pieces, by the way.
Yeah, they're worth more than $500.
I don't know
now.
what they're worth, but I love them. I mean, the colors are crazy, and his, just the way he just did everything with a spray can, like that thin, was unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
So we came out here and we did the Stussy Union. Extra Large was out here.
Right.
555 Soul wasn't
555
yet, but it
They were coming.
they were
555 Soul was coming. They opened up on Martell and Beverly.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And while I had the store open, I was embracing all these stores. Like I was visiting them all the time. I was like, cool, a community
Right.
is starting to develop. Like now we just need to get some parties going. And parties started to occur. Like there was one called Kings Road. Was it Kings Road? I forget what it was, but there was a bar called Kings Road or something. In fact, Orlando used to have something to do with it. It was like the equivalent of Giant Step.
It's
in
like
New York.
Brass.
Oh, Brass.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Brass.
Brass, yeah.
But you'd go. It was just a bunch of it felt like a backpacker situation. Not many girls were there.
Yeah.
Like every hip hop party I went to back in the early days, even in New York though, like women were kind of afraid of it. I think it was a bit aggressive.
Yeah.
Potentially, maybe not the music so much. They probably loved the music, but the dudes
Yeah.
were probably a bit aggressive.
Definitely.
So that was kind of weird. But yeah, like Beastie Boys were out here.
Yeah.
Cypress Hill really had an inspiration on me because in New York it crossed over to New York because coming from New York, you just did not like West Coast rap,
Right.
and that's not an insult. It's just a taste. It's like no, I live and I breathe this East Coast
Right.
sound, and if you're from the West Coast, it's a completely You know, it was like hey, and all that stuff, and it was NWA, and I didn't appreciate that stuff until like the late '90s, to be honest with you. You know, I was fighting it all the way. I was like, no, I want to bring that East Coast shit to LA. You know, I want to introduce it here, but mix it with, you know, the stuff that was happening. So House of Pain, Cypress Hill, Souls of Mischief, Far Side, like that was telling me like, oh man, there's something brewing in LA.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it was, I mean, I don't want to curse or nothing, but it was like one big pussy waiting to get fucked. That's how I looked at it. And I come from New York, and everything in New York is like fast. You got to get every place fast. You got to do everything fast. When I came out here, it was like, man, when I would go to the bank, I would go crazy because the tellers were so bloody slow. You know, so I was like, okay, cool. I got to figure out a plan to like speed this up and run circles. I felt like, man, I have an advantage right now. I've got this like New York energy, and I was going to New York like every 3 months and then bringing that energy back, and I just shit started to happen. You know.
Yeah. How important is that? Like, you know, being kind of like you're saying, like the energy is so different, right? So how much do you have to adapt yourself to fit LA, or is it bringing to New York? Does that make the difference?
Well, are we talking about the 90s or currently?
I'm just talking about, like, I'm wondering whether, like, was it more, did it work in your favor to be kind of an outsider, bringing your own style here, or was it more about adapting?
That's a great question, and you answered the question for me. Yeah, I think it was to my advantage. I was like that new kid, that East Coast kid. Oh shit, you know, like let's go check out this East Coast kid,
right?
Because there weren't many of us out here.
Yeah,
you know. But all my friends started visiting, and eventually everybody moved out here.
Right.
So
that's what happens.
Yeah, and on the real, like the first 2 to 3 years, maybe you never knew this, but I bloody hated it here. I was like, I can't. I was like begging my partner James. I was like, yo, bro. And Supreme opened in '94. When Supreme opened, I was like, okay, there's my opportunity to get my ass back to New York, you know?
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen. And eventually I adapted, and then I just started to feel like more culture was coming. It started to feel more international. The trade shows were here, which was cool. Like ASR was a big deal back in the day. For sure. Magic was a big deal. I don't even know if they do ASR anymore. But
no, I think it's...
This is a wrap?
I think it's just agenda now, right?
When did the sneakers start popping up?
So
that's
so,
a big part.
So when I had the Stussy Union, eventually the space next door to me became available. So and then Stussy's brand got a little bigger. Yeah. Stussy can afford to be in its own. It could have its own environment. So I basically split up the environment. So I kept Stussy separated, and Union had its own shop now. And what was the question again?
Sneakers.
Sneakers. So at Union, which I built for like 15, 17 grand. A friend of mine, Barbara Bester, who's a prominent, she's like a well-known architect now, but at the time, you know, she was like really humble. I was like, look, I got like 15K. Yeah. And she found this Unistrut system. Remember that green system? Yeah. And they use this at airport warehouses. I was like, sure, let's do it, you know? So she built me a store. It was kind of cool, you know. I got this artist, Costas Ceramides. I don't know if you remember him. Yeah. He was, before he blew up, he came in, he did these 3 characters. You know, music was important. I put an office on top. First time I ever had an office, because I was literally working at the Stussy shop 365 days a week. I don't know if you remember, a year. Yeah. I worked at that shop, the Stussy Union shop, 365 days a year, maybe for 2 years. Wow. You know, because it was my first business, and you know, I was just about it. And I felt like I needed to be there to handle everything and correspond with people.
You know, I didn't know that, but I definitely remember, like, well, that's Eddie from Stussy. Like, it was that was your name, as far as like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it was even like going to the stores, like, I'm gonna go see Eddie. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so you definitely became, that was your brand, right? Like that. Yeah.
It wasn't really. I mean, it was my store, you know. And and if you wanted to come hang, you know, you knew where to find me. Right. So, and it was fun. Yeah. Like there was culture there. Like, you know, that's how I met Adam.
Sure.
Yeah. It drew me.
Adam walked in, and I told him, when you hit 18, give me a call. And he hit 18, he gave me a call, and I gave him a job.
Nice.
Isn't that how it went down?
Not exactly.
Okay, I don't remember. What was like?
Edwin left.
Okay.
And he was like, Adam's gonna take my place, and you were like,
Okay, cool. Yeah.
It was,
So I met
it
him
was
when he
even
was like
easier,
this.
but I was 15.
Right.
If you know anything
I
about
had been
him,
going- yeah.
Yeah.
super advanced.
Yeah.
You know, he had a radio show, like a hip hop. I was like, what? This white boy with like a hip hop radio show? I
remember.
just didn't get it, you know? Like, but that's impressive, man. 15 years old, 16 years old, high school radio show, like doing it. I think you were making tapes, right?
I had some tapes.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
Yeah. So when Union became its own thing, Union started to let me travel.
Yeah.
Because I knew that, like, because of what was happening was like all like streetwear, like the P&B brands, like that became commercial.
Yeah.
Fucked to a certain extent started to take a commercial because these guys got to make money. Fresh Jive.
Right.
So I said, okay, let me check out London. I went to London. I found Silas. You know, and I went to a store. I went to Duffer St. George store for the first time, and I was like, man, these guys have all these Nikes in here. I was like, what is going on? And then I just straight up asked. He says, well, you know, because I knew the guys. They were like, Ed, whenever we go to LA, what do you think we're doing? We're just buying all your shit. Not our shit, like just going to mom and pop shops around LA, buying sneakers to complement their brand in LA, and that just put a light bulb went off in my head.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started to do the same thing because I learned that Nike had regional programs. So in other words, New York got specific stuff just for New York. Chicago got specific stuff just for them. And the stores that were selling them didn't know what they had.
Right.
And people like me and you and Adam didn't even know it existed. It wasn't being marketed to us. We were just seeking it out. And these guys had them on sale for $19.99, $29.99 for like, you know, the first Michigan Dunks, the first Celtics Dunks, the first Timberland Air Force Ones, the first high top Burgundies. Like I never thought I'd see a burgundy high top Air Force One. Bought that back. A chocolate, like a brown high top Air Force One. And I put them in the showcase at Union, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'm just gonna mark these up high because I don't want them to sell. It's just here to complement the shop.
Yeah.
But first, second, third day, yo, Ed, these are selling out. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So that's really what that told me. What was missing was a shop like Undefeated, or at the time there was a store called North in New York. And there was also Rivington Club owned by the A-Life crew. We were all in the same mindset. They got their stores open first, but I think but it was all like brewing, like in the late 90s,
Like
you know?
sneakers were becoming.
Yeah, it was coming eventually. And then Undefeated finally opened in 2002. But in reality, like it really started at Union. Another thing I did, which told me something was going crazy, was I was buying white on white Air Force Ones. I was removing the swooshes, and I was putting fake Louis Vuitton and Gucci. As
You
a
were doing
swoosh.
that personally?
I was doing that. Not personally, I'm sorry.
But
We
yeah,
a
you had
cobbler.
somebody.
We had a cobbler do it, and we were marking them up to, I think, $350, $400. And I was like, what the hell is going on? You know, like this is meant just for flavor, you know, but people were feeling it.
Yeah.
And it was like a, you know, I mean, I'm not the originator of that. There's a guy named Dapper Dan in New York who used to dress, you know, Mike Tyson and Eric B. and Rakim and that whole crew. Like, that's where that concept came from. Like, kids were, like they turning up like what they had, you know. So
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's when I really became aware of sneakers. I mean, we always wore sneakers, and but it was like
You didn't collect them, or you didn't like.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Like I remember.
You just like you need some shoes, so you go get some Stans or some shell toes or whatever, right? But yeah,
it was I'm slightly younger, so I remember when like the Jordans came out. When like it wasn't the ones for me. It wasn't. It was like I had Jordan 2s, but when the 3s came out, was like I think I was in 5th grade, and it was like a thing then.
Well, that's when that thing really blew up.
Yeah.
Well, but that's in 1985.
But that was different, though. I'm saying like
the retros. You got the retros.
No, I was in 5th grade.
Oh, okay.
I was kid sizes. I had to go find a
sense.
size 6, and like you had to look everywhere for them, and all the kids had them, but like no one they were all wearing them. There wasn't the like I'm gonna put these on ice or I'm gonna get 2 pairs.
That's the thing. Like I mean, I think sneakers were always important, but it was like, and especially when Jordan sort of made. But I think like sneaker culture, for me at least, that started really when I saw the Air Force Ones with the Gucci swoosh.
With
like,
the Gucci, yeah, with the
like or the Louis,
yeah,
or whatever. Like it was like, oh shit, somebody,
yeah,
like that's art.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I don't think I would have used that term at the time, but
yeah.
yeah.
I think that the culture probably happened 10 years after that. So
Well,
I think it's the generation that came like after me that like where there was the Nike talks where they could
Right.
really like
Yeah,
where
for
it was
sure.
kids that would match like crazy match.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the sneakers to the hat to this.
Yep.
Where I think what we were doing, it was just like an extension of our like childhood of trying to be fresh. Whereas I mean at least
So I was 14
Yeah.
in San Francisco, and this kid, drug dealer kid at my school, had a Louis jacket, and kind of like a Letterman, but it was all Louis. And so I went into the Louis Vuitton store at Union Square, and the lady, snooty lady, comes up to me. I'm like, yeah, let me see the jacket. She's like, we don't make clothing. I'm like, yeah, you do. There's a kid at my school that has it. Like, I had no idea
Bootleg.
that it was bootleg, and she was just like, at the time, this is 83 or 80, like they're selling bags, and they didn't have any clothes. She just looked at me like I was crazy, and it wasn't until years later that I realized that whole thing was going down.
Yeah.
So funny. So where'd the idea for Undefeated come from?
Well, the inspiration came from the money factor.
Yeah.
And there being a void in the market.
Right.
And me wanting to be the first one in LA to facilitate. But I just didn't understand the game. Like, I didn't deal with Nike. I didn't because the thing with Nike is that's a corporate thing. So even
Right.
though we got this cool thing going on, carrying all the dunks we want and all the Air Force Ones that we're buying from the mom and pop shops, like brands like Nike didn't understand like what was going on with us. They're like, what do you mean you want to curate a wall and you're going to play hip hop and the staff is gonna wear dress the same and there's a hip hop culture attached to it or whatever kind of music you were into. Like it was quite a battle actually.
Yeah.
Like
so you had to go up and pitch them?
I had to do a song and dance. Yeah. And basically Nike said no. Like I wanted a Nike account in 1990, in the year 2000, 99, 2000, begging. And they were like, no, we're not going to open you. They just didn't get it, So I got a little bit bummed out at that. But then a store called K-Bon opened.
Right.
Who's currently the owner of that store is currently my partner at Undefeated.
Yep.
He had a Nike account. And I was like, what the hell's going on here, yo?
And K-Bon wasn't really streetwear.
It wasn't really street. It was. I thought it was quite advanced. I think it was
a
like
curated shop.
It was a
the same way
well-curated
Union was,
shop.
but it was a different.
Way ahead of its time. Like K-Bon was way ahead of its time because if you go to Paris and you see Colette and all that stuff, like those guys have taken it to the next level. I believe if K-Bon would have stuck it out, they probably would have been on that level today, and they probably would have a bunch of these stores, But Nike was attracted to it. Nike, and so they started selling them like the Air Wovens. This is when Nike started to get experimental. They started working with guys like Hiroshi Fujiwara and the president of Nike, Mark Parker. Like he's really into this culture,
Yeah.
In fact, I heard he has a house just for his collection of toys, art, and sneakers.
Is that right?
Next to his house.
That's crazy.
So that's how crazy he is into it.
Yeah.
So that put it in my head, and then me not getting the Nike account but having the space available, I met James Bond and his wife at this barbecue I was at. I was like, yo, son, I got this idea. I want to do a sneaker shop. You know how to do that song and dance. Like he was really good at talking to corporate America. Yeah. But dude like me, forget about it, Right. So he said, sure, let's do it. And that's how Undefeated, that was like the inception of Undefeated.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what have you learned about having a partner along the way?
It's like
if you could go back then.
Yeah.
Would you set things up differently or?
No. I mean, I've always had partners. I actually like having partners. You get to split the responsibilities. You divide and conquer, same thing. But you just have to learn how to. You definitely have to learn how to work. With a partner because it's basically like being in a marriage.
Right.
Essentially, you have It's like you have this corporation, and our corporation says Eddie Cruz and James Bond are partners.
Right.
Same thing as a marriage certificate. So you just find a way to make it work. And
so how do you do that now? Like, how do you split up? Like, who does what?
he pretty much handles all the creative stuff.
Okay.
You know, I'm more on the operational side and probably more of a face. You know, like I'll go out and, you know, I'll go to dinners and I'll go to events and I'll show my face and I'll make friends and I'll bring, you know, I'll make collaborations happen and then I'll hand it over to James. I mean, he does things like that as well, but he's a family man with 2 kids, so he doesn't have as much time. But so that's pretty much like how it goes down. I'm pretty much like a face, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I work.
The mascot.
I work, but you know,
sure.
But I mingle
Right.
as well. You know, and that's a big part of like the business. You know, that's
Absolutely.
like going back to like living, you know, like living my lifestyle through my business.
Yeah.
You know?
Sports were always a part of your life.
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Like
sort of-
I'm a sports, like me and James, like James and I, we're the biggest sports nerds you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
We live and die by our teams. For me, it's the Lakers now, and it's anything LA. But in the past, it was Yankees and it was the Knicks.
Yeah.
For James, he's from Philly. I mean, homie throws like shoes at the flat screen while he's watching the Flyers, the Eagles, or the 76ers. So what Undefeated was like basically everything points to James and me. 2 guys that are into sports, 2 guys that understand music, culture, and art and fashion. So hence the name Undefeated, you know.
I mean, I feel like Undefeated, you guys really brought sports kind of to the forefront, like in that street culture.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, obviously with Supreme Skating, you know, had a huge part of that.
Yeah.
And with Stussy, you know, surfing.
Yeah.
But like mainstream sports, basketball, you know, other than the shoes, like that's not really, it's kind of been a separate thing. Right?
Yeah.
And you guys really brought that together. Do you think that?
Well, we wanted to bring, basically, it was easy, you know, and this is a big part of streetwear. In streetwear, you do parodies, you know, so it wasn't hard to, like, take the Yankees logo, like the Yankee script, and write Undefeated in the Yankee script. And, you know, it's like simple techniques like that we're getting over. You can't do that today.
Right.
Because they have, like, internet police.
Right.
But back in the day, you could do whatever you want.
For sure.
You know? Like, it was like everything was out there for the taking. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, we pick sports as a lane and a foundation for like what the brand Undefeated was going to stand for. Wanted to be the alternative to like a Foot Locker,
Sure.
or a Nike, or you know, like we wanted to do what they couldn't do.
So how soon did you know that you had something?
I felt like the first day because we had a line outside. It was like unbelievable. We were getting incredible press. All these magazines were hitting us up for interviews. And I'm pretty oblivious to all that stuff, like chat rooms, and like I don't really pay attention to like what's being said. I just do the work.
Yeah.
I really do. Like I don't read much
Yeah.
about stuff. You know, I didn't read anything. I mean, I know who you are, but I didn't listen to your show. I was like, let me just go on and flow. And that's just kind of how I'm doing. You know, that's just kind of how I go about my business.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. But you could feel it on the street.
Yeah, you could feel it on the street. Like they, you know, it's funny because now I'm an OG, and or actually I'm a double OG according to like some of the little kids.
That's right.
You know, even though I'm my age, and I'm not going to tell you my age, but you got to know it's around 50.
Sure.
All right. I mean, I've been relax. All right. I said it's around 50, so it could be. You're younger than 50. It could be older than 50, but I've always managed to keep my eye on the ball. I have friends who are 40. I have friends who are 30. I have friends who are 20.
Yeah.
And I make it my business to make that kind of stuff happen, but in an organic way. Like we got to get along.
Yeah.
You know, but it just keeps me on my toes. I'm very interested in youth culture always. I'm always like mentoring kids. I think that's super important, especially the 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
And what I like about this generation, this 20-year-olds, even though you hear people saying, "Oh, the millennials are like they're just so entitled," but I've met a lot of kids who aren't like that. You know, I've met a lot of kids who are quite nostalgic, and they want to know, like, hey, how did this? Like, tell me about the 80s. You know, what is Face magazine? What is Metropolis magazine? How did you know, people don't know Interview magazine was started by Andy Warhol.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so I love like preaching, not preaching, but mentoring kids like that. You know, so I think that's why I've managed to just kind of like stay around.
Yeah.
You know, just keeping an open mind. I still go to Coachella, the oldest guy on the lawn potentially, but I'm not because I've seen some older dudes.
You're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So and then obviously, so that was 2000.
Undefeated Open in 2002.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But the idea was brewing
right.
in 99 and 2000.
Yeah.
It's just we weren't getting an account
Sure.
from Nike or Adidas. Like they didn't understand. Like I said, they just didn't understand what was going on. They were
Right.
coming in union, like saying, where are you getting the sneakers? I'm like, I'm getting them at these shops that have them on sale for $19.99.
Yeah.
But we're putting them in an environment that's really fucking cool, yo.
Yeah.
Can't you see this? But at the time, you know, it's just a bunch of salespeople that you're dealing with. They're wearing suits and ties.
Right.
It's not like
I just don't get it.
it's not like swagged out kids coming in
Sure,
repping the
of
brand
course,
like
yeah.
it is now. But
course.
back in the day, it was like suit and tie
Yeah.
suit and tie guys not really understanding the culture and really not understanding how could you sell that dunk, which should retail for like $85 for $300.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because guys like Zach De La Rocca was coming in going, what? You know, Nike makes a
Right.
white and Celtic green dunk. I was like, yeah, but they weren't available at Nike Town. They were just
Right,
selling
right,
them
right.
to these
Yeah,
mom
you
and
couldn't
pop
get
shops.
them at Foot Locker either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, we introduced. I mean, I'm not here to name drop, but like Pharrell would come in and you know what I would do when we first opened up Undefeated, like a big part of the game was trading.
Yeah.
Remember I was telling you there was a regional program, like London had what they
Right.
had, Japan had what they had. So what all the stores started doing was we were like, okay, cool. Nike just sent us these 12 wheat Air Force Ones. We want those East Indy, the West Indy Air Force One from New York. So you trade, and then you could charge a premium.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
you
because you
got
couldn't get 'em.
fly to New York, and
Right.
there is no internet. You can't
course.
buy it on the web.
Right.
You know. So
So talk about how that. I mean, obviously that game's changed so much.
Yeah.
We had Josh Luber on the show. You know Josh. He just started StockX.
did we go to dinner with him?
No, he's the.
Campless is his other.
It's
business.
like the
So it's
the
a
rating system for sneakers.
Yeah, and then StockX is a trading app.
Wow.
So he calls it the stock exchange
Smart.
for sneakers.
Yeah, good for him.
Right, and so, but I say just like obviously that game has changed so much.
Yeah.
Right. Nike gets it now. And
Yeah.
I think so does everybody else
Yeah.
to some extent.
Yeah.
And you know, you guys have inspired the next generation
Yeah.
of entrepreneurs, stores,
Yeah.
you know, labels, whatever,
yeah.
to do their thing. So how is that different? How's the game different now, and how have you adapted?
I mean, right now, how we adapted. I mean, there's definitely a problem in the sneaker community, and the problem is it's a bit of an oversaturated market.
Sure.
And I think the reason for that is that there's too many collaborations going on.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have all these brands that were amazing in the '80s, like Pony, Fila,
Right.
Asics, Diadora.
Yeah.
Like now they're all coming back
Some
and they
advisory.
figured it out.
Yeah.
Like they've like figured out better technology.
Right.
You know, like how to make their shoes look more fresh, and
Yeah.
so it's just a saturated market now. And there's like 20 collabs a week, so
Right.
a collab isn't even special anymore. So I think that kind of stuff worries me.
Yeah.
You know, luckily, like with Jordans, that's something that people still cherish and collect. And when you buy
Right.
them, you actually buy them to wear.
Yeah.
You know, so how have we adapted? Sorry, let me go back to your question. I don't know. We've just gone with the flow. We've learned that you need to drop something special once a month, whether it's a sneaker or a garments. You need to do something special. And it doesn't have to be a collaboration with another brand, but you could work with a brand like, let's say, Alpha Jackets or Majestic, who like they do like all the Major League Baseball stuff. That's what kids are becoming like this is what they become accustomed to.
Right.
Like everything's a collab. Everything has to be special.
Sure.
I think the way you guys adapted is you created a brand as opposed to just a store.
Yeah. And we created a brand out of necessity.
Is that right?
Because in the sneaker industry, in the beginning, you can get any kind of markup you wanted, like a 2.5. And if you don't know retail, usually you work off of a keystone markup, and a keystone markup means you pay 50, you charge 100, and you hope and pray that you sell every single unit. If not, you're left with dead stock. And in the sneaker industry, if you're left with dead stock, you can't. It's like spoiled milk, So out of necessity, we had to create a brand to kind of balance things out, because as the market got more saturated, you couldn't sell that sneaker for a 2.5 or triple markup. You have to sell it for the suggested retail.
Right.
Pay 50, charge $95. And that just isn't enough of a markup to support whatever a store needs to like help it be financed,
Yeah.
So we created a brand so that we can get our own markup, and that's how the brand was developed.
Yeah.
That's why we did it.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we were looking at Foot Locker. I mean, there's a reason why Foot Locker has Foot Locker underwear, T-shirts, socks, because trust me, they're not making it, they're making it on the volume side, but the real money is in all the product that you see their logo on.
But the Nikes bring people into the store.
Nike drives people in. You hope to sell Nike, but you also hope that they buy a bunch of your gear.
Yeah.
And that's a nice balance, and we've been lucky.
Yeah.
Like where people come in and buy sneakers, and they buy T-shirts and baseball caps and fleece pieces, So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems, at Foot Locker, that stuff seems like an afterthought. At Undefeated, I don't get that. It seems like there's as much, and I know you guys carry some other, I know there's Bape in the store right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to, how am I adapting? That's one of the ways I'm adapting.
Yeah.
I keep saying, we alternative to Foot Locker. Okay, then we need to be more multi-branded.
Sure.
So what I want to do is, I brought in Bape. A lot of people may not like it, but a lot of people love it. And it's a triple markup, and it's money in the bank. It's like just good business.
Yeah.
And it definitely hits a market. I would say it's an 18 to 25-year-old kid that goes nuts over it,
That's crazy that
I've added a
kids that age are spending that kind of money.
Yeah, kids today are not afraid to spend $300 on a hoodie as long as the quality is there and the status is there.
Yeah.
So...
But it's more about the status than anything.
Status, but kids also appreciate quality. And, a lot of these kids, they don't own homes. They don't have car payments. So they save their money to look fresh.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's hard to imagine. Although now at this age, I feel like anything I buy, I'm probably going to have it the rest of my life. Because I don't wear clothes out. I don't wear shit out. And I'm not buying stuff that's going to be out of style next season. Yeah. Whatever. So it's just I've found that in the recent years, it's especially I buy some jeans, these are going to last me 20 years.
Yeah.
And I'll be just as happy with them then.
Yeah.
And it changes your perspective a little bit on
I think as you get older, you adapt the uniform.
Yeah.
And it life just becomes easy. And
for sure.
But that's not, I don't sell the market. I don't sell to people my age.
No, of course.
I would say it's 16 to 35.
Yeah.
So, but for me, I pretty much just rock the same uniform.
Right.
I just rock Jordans, Converse, and that's it. Just those two things.
Yeah. You don't wear your own product?
Not much. No. I feel weird wearing my own product. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder how important is that? If you talk to people in the with the athlete endorsements, right? Everyone says, well, that shoe didn't sell because he didn't wear it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think I'm viewed. I'm not like a social media icon.
Sure.
Like that, where if I wear something, a kid is going to want to wear it. So we hope that cool kids on social media want to wear it, and then they post it, and then unfortunately, that is the game that we're playing today.
So how much of that is your business? How are you actively trying to engineer that?
Yeah, I mean, it's as far as Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, just getting whether it's celebrities or or influencers wearing your product.
We have a seeding list.
Okay.
So we definitely send packages out to certain athletes, certain rappers, singers, actors, or even influencers. Just people who are just considered fashion icons.
Yeah.
And you hope that they Instagram, and if they do, it drives traffic. But Undefeated, we're an established brand. We're really lucky. Next year will be our 15th anniversary. We have an established clientele, and they've been growing with us.
Yeah.
You know, and as they grow, their kids get old enough to understand who we are.
Right.
And they're the ones that we have to adapt to and make
Sure.
sure on a tech, like on a digital level, that we're on point.
Right.
You know, I think that's the most important thing, just adapting and modernizing. And because if you don't in this day and age, you're really in big trouble.
Well, that seems so hard in the fashion business, right? To, you know, just the swings between what's cool and what's not cool, and
Yeah.
you know, the fact that something was cool
Yeah.
a couple years ago makes it sometimes
Yeah.
not cool.
Yeah.
And
I think
like,
everything now is moving way faster than it ever
Sure.
has.
Yeah, I mean, and it's and like the sneaker industry, the streetwear industry, or whatever you want to call it, is a saturated market again.
yeah,
Like it was a dream for kids, like brands like let's say Diamond, Crooks and Castles, all that stuff, like
Right.
that phase.
Huff.
Yeah, like that, like Huff and all that stuff. If they got a rapper to wear it,
right,
that was a big deal to brands like that. You
Yeah.
know? But now rappers are realizing they can't make money
Right.
selling music because everyone's downloading music, so they need to create brands.
Yeah.
You know, like Drake has a brand called OVO.
yep,
You know, A$AP Rocky has a brand called Vilon,
Uh-huh.
and they're killing it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so
So how does that? Is there a competitor that has changed the game for you?
no, not really. I know, like at our office, we really try not to look at what anybody else is doing. We keep our blinders on and
Yeah.
and just try to do everything from a feeling, which I think is super important.
Yeah.
You know, through like, you know, whatever you're experiencing in life, whatever, you know, if you just got back from Paris, you could, you know, you just come back all fired up and you know, you just come up with something, you know.
Yeah.
We just dropped the dunk last Saturday,
Okay.
and you know, did you see that? Yeah, we did this dunk. It's called the night. It was like commemorating the 30th anniversary of the dunk. Take a look at it online if you want, undefeated.com.
Nice.
We did a pop-up shop for it. We collaborated.
I saw that.
Yeah, we collaborated with Digital Domain.
Okay.
They were down with the concept. They gave us all the technology. I don't know if you got to go in and check
I
it out.
didn't go in.
But it was pretty cool. We got this basketball player named Pat the Rock, and he's like a world-class crazy dribbler. You put on the goggles. We got a musician, or this how would you categorize what No Such does?
Electronic.
Yeah, electronic music, like in the headset, and then you're basically experiencing this 360-degree experience
Right.
of like this guy like coming up to you, dunking.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
Yeah, we sold every single piece.
Right.
Like it takes a lot now to sell a lot.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I never thought I'd have 2 in-house photographers,
Uh-huh.
a programmer, a person that cleans up my photographs, my own photo studio. I was like, what? Like
Yeah.
But if you want to compete and do it right, you know, the quality level needs to be high.
Yeah.
Competition is stiff.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah. And then at the same time, you know, we were talking earlier about, you know, how much influence the magazines had, which seems to have diminished.
Yeah, but with that being said, I'm seeing a little bit of a resurgence in terms of like zines coming out.
Oh, really?
I'm liking that too. Like I don't know if
Okay.
you're seeing that, Adam, but there's a lot of zines out there now.
I see that more as like art and expression as opposed to like, I don't think kids are looking for zines for like to find style. You know what I mean? I think there's like a little
absolutely
culture
not.
behind
It's
it.
not. They're not. When I say zines, they're not lookbooks. They're
Yeah.
just zines with a vibe. You know.
Right.
You know, we made one.
Yeah.
Supreme just opened up a store in Paris a few months ago, and that's one of the gifts that they gave away. They gave away zines, which is kind of saying something. It's just like cassette tapes
Sure.
now. Like
Yeah,
I'm
cassettes are-
noticing like a lot of people are feeling cassette tapes, and I was
Yeah.
with my boy last night. And I was like, "Yo, like, but what are they playing it on?" He says, "Oh, they're buying vintage
Yeah.
boom boxes."
Or they put it on their desk like it's a
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just
Piece of
a
art.
collector's
Yeah,
thing.
but my friend also told me that vinyl's getting really expensive.
Well, you can't make vinyl.
Is that what's
Well,
going
that's a
on?
problem. Like, you can't get vinyl made because
Okay.
all the presses are backed up.
Yeah.
Because all the presses are 40 years old or
Gotcha.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the cassette thing. I mean, I just got the Bobito thing with the
That's
cassettes
dope.
in it.
That's
and
dope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you watch that documentary?
Yeah. We had him on the
Awesome,
show, him and Stretch.
Really?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, it was great, right?
Incredible, man.
Yeah.
Really like brought me back. kind of got a little emotional. To be honest
Is
with
that
you.
right?
Yeah, man, because they absolutely captured what the hell, like what was going on in New York City in early to mid 90s.
Yeah.
Like no one else, because they actually lived it.
Right.
Like those guys, like,
Yeah, for sure.
Like they had that show and they lived it, they created it, and they didn't even know what they were doing. Like they were just, like I said, like they were just living their lifestyle, just kind of doing what they like, and organically shit just starts to pop off.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So that, I mean,
It's
I firmly
amazing.
believe that. Like if you just have that mentality, like doing what you love, you know, just kind of like create something that you could make a living off of, where you could where you don't compromise your lifestyle, keep it organic, keep it real, it'll start to pop off.
Yeah.
You know.
So when you go to stuff you were talking about earlier, you know, going to Coachella,
Yeah.
how much are you paying attention, like whether it's the fashions out there or like, you know, how much are you being influenced?
You know, there are some stylish kids like at the ASAP Rocky set, like kids were definitely conscious of what they were wearing.
For sure.
You know, there's a lot of Jordans. There was a lot of slim jeans all ripped up and
Right.
tucked in and stuff like that. But that I've already seen,
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah.
that doesn't really inspire me.
So that's, I wonder, are you conscious of, because, you know, what you see then influences your, the
It does, but it doesn't. I think you have to stand for something.
yeah, you're just wearing what
He's
somebody
just
told you.
wearing
to wear.
what someone,
Wearing
like
a
what,
costume.
pardon?
Wearing a costume.
He's wearing a costume. He's
Yeah.
wearing what someone on social media probably told him to wear, what they
Yeah.
saw. Like, it's not a real lifestyle.
Sure.
You know, so it doesn't really inspire us. Like you've never seen Undefeated or Stussy make anything that feels too fuckboyish, right?
No, I don't think
Yeah.
so.
So
So what about you, Adam? How do you sort of curate your influences? We talked before, you know, about the music influence on you, but
Yeah, I mean, I guess my influences are more music, and I mean, I hope if I look back at my like last 20 years of what I worn, it was mostly jeans. You know, I also.
well, I'm talking
wore-
about what you design.
Oh, I don't know. I try to do what feels right. You
Okay.
know, like,
I guess I'm wondering, is it a conscious thing for both of you? Like you're out in the world and you're seeing new shit,
but
right?
it's how
and,
do you make it you?
and it's how do you filter that, right? Is that a conscious thing for you? Like, you know, you said like, you know, you go to Paris, you know, you're gonna come back different than when you left, right?
Yeah, like when I went to Paris this trip, I came back with the feeling of, you know what? It's important to acknowledge fashion
Yeah.
in streetwear or in, you know, street culture clothing brands. You know, you have to acknowledge it. I noticed Stussy's doing it. If you look at Supreme, they're definitely acknowledging like high fashion.
Right.
You can't pretend it's not there. And in the end, whether you call it streetwear, sportswear, or whatever wear, it's still fashion.
Yeah.
It was designed by a designer. You know, like that's just the name that they just.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah,
the
of course.
category they put it in, the
Sure.
streetwear. You know, but. Like right now, that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling like you have to acknowledge fashion a little bit, and I think there's a way to do it in a subtle way where you're not going too like overboard.
Yeah.
You know, and you could do that with colors. You could have a dope, simple, like skate-looking coaching jacket, but you could do it in a popping color, like a cool fashion color, like the perfect pale yellow or the perfect infrared pink or
Yeah.
you know whatever.
Yeah.
So you could acknowledge it in subtle ways.
I think it's also, at least me with like art
Yeah.
stuff, it's about editing. You know, once you get those influences, it's knowing like, you know, what to sort of throw aside and be like, you know what, I like that because it's like kind of cool now, but a year from now it might not, you know, it might not pop the same way it does now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And stuff that really like makes sense for, you know, the brand I'm
I've
working
never
for.
regretted not jumping on a trend. You know, you have to stand for something. You have to have your foundation and you have to stick with it. But acknowledge that times change. You know, so through the digital age, you have to make sure that stuff is up to par.
Right.
And like I said, fits. You definitely have to acknowledge how fits change because that does happen.
Sure.
But in the end, you really just have to like Undefeated. We're a sport thing. We're not going to stay literal to it. We're going
Right.
to evolve a little bit, but we're starting to acknowledge fashion a little bit.
Okay.
You know, so and by popping colors into things. You know, so
Yeah. What do you think you sacrificed that maybe you weren't expecting to?
I'm gonna cry, bro. No.
We
Well,
can cry on it. Have we had anyone cry
I'm
on
not
the
gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. But if you want to know, sacrifice wise, like me moving to LA, definitely, you know, that was a sacrifice. That was me leaving my mom and my dad and my brother and my entire family behind. Like that was like the last day I was in New York. It was like a big like huddle of like just crying and you know, you're Puerto Rican and this is your mom and your mom. Like everybody's mom is special, but you know that was like the hardest part of just being away from my family. That was the sacrifice. You know, I would say it was worth it because I feel like a lot was accomplished and a lot of people did get inspired and but you know you miss out on those years. You know. Yeah. So you have to go back as much as possible, but you know it flies, man. Yeah. So for me, that was the sacrifice. If that's what you were getting at,
absolutely.
In terms of
absolutely, I'm always curious what the trade-offs are.
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah. For me, it was like just leaving my family behind. Yeah, you know? And I don't mean that literally. I'm just saying I physically left the state. Sure. Imagine being in a state with no family members. That's whack, right? Imagine if your dad, if you didn't have access to your dad, you know, like you could call him, but it's just like that. That sucks. I have to say that sucks. Yeah.
And where do you think, like, do you feel like you've made it? Are you always just focused on the next thing?
I'm always focused on the next thing. I think I'm gonna keep going until the wheels fall off. Yeah. You know. Is there
some goal that you feel like? That's the ultimate.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been interested in the music industry. Okay. I know it's a tough industry from a business perspective.
Sells clothing.
Pardon me?
Sells clothing.
But it sells clothing. So I have the opportunity to work with this record company called Timetable Records. Okay. They're under Innovative Leisure, and I don't work and I don't get paid for. I mean, I'm at meetings, but I'm not getting paid. Yeah. But it's just I'm just kind of like mentoring and like teaching the art of branding. Nice. Like how, you know, it's important to like get from underneath your turntable and like put your face up front and, you know, musicians have a lot more, they have to offer more now, you know, so I think that I can help like in that way and I'm very interested in that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Like at this last Coachella, I was backstage and for me, like that was a big like, oh my God, I made it backstage. I'm backstage. I'm on the fucking stage, yo. And
do you want to grab the mic? And
no, I don't want to grab the mic, but I just found myself like, man, I'm seeing how this shit goes down. You know Todd, right? Yeah, like Todd was there too, and I'm like, Todd, this is like a dream. You don't understand what's going on right now, you know, in my mind. So, like, I'm definitely interested in that.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I have that going on as like something else that I'm doing, and I just started a new company called UNDD. Okay. It's affiliated with Undefeated, but it's going to be everything pertaining to feet. So we're going to start doing footwear, but not sneakers, though. Yeah. We're just going to do like house slippers, slides, and an extensive sock program, well packaged. Nice. Yeah. So that's like a big focus right now.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. Yeah. So what do you, as a mentor, what are you teaching? What are the big lessons that somebody gets from you?
Well, when I talk to the kids, like, I'm like, well, first off, ask me whatever you want. And they all seem to be curious about, like how did it start? I love, like, basically I tell kids here, watch New York 7-7. You know, that's a movie that you could, you know, is it Downtown 7-7? It's basically this documentary on like the hottest year in New York, literally. They were blackouts. Yeah. All this shit was going down. But it's when hip hop and punk like that's when it all started to evolve. So I'll tell kids, yeah, go watch that movie. Go watch Taxi Driver. Watch Goodfellas. So I usually tell them to watch certain movies. And a lot of them, and I'm surprised, like 20 to 23-year-old, I've seen it because their parents told them to watch it. You know,
do you want to watch kids?
I don't tell kids. I don't consider kids like I consider, like, for me, it's like 70s and 80s movies.
Yeah. Kids gives a pretty interesting glimpse into like sort of the mid 90s
Yeah.
New York
Yeah.
like skate.
Yeah.
I saw it recently. And
Did you see they're doing a documentary now
Yeah.
on the kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't they do it already?
I think
Or
it's
they
done.
trying
Maybe
to
it's
raise
done.
money?
I think they were
it's-
done. I think they were trying
Yeah.
to raise money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I tell kids, take your time. Like I notice, like everyone wants it now. They don't want to. Like a lot of these kids, like they don't understand like the work that goes into it.
Yeah.
I find like it's like the instant gratification.
For
like,
sure.
You want the
No,
likes.
no, son. Like I know you got the idea, but 90% that's 10%.
Right.
Now make it happen, work it out, have a plan. So that's one thing that I find a little bit disturbing. Like a lot of kids, like they want it too quick,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you don't, and when you come from nothing, you really don't have that many shots. I think to like create a brand, because once you create a brand, your name
Sure.
and your face is identified with it. If it gets played out in a year or two, or if it fails, it's really hard to regroup and start over again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not impossible, but really just stay grounded. Do what you feel like doing. Create a strong foundation. Stand for something.
Yeah.
Don't stray away from that.
That's so valuable. I mean, I think, especially in clothing, right? Like, there's all these Instagram girls and they just, put up something and sell a bunch of copies of it, and right?
Yeah. Like that's the way of the world. Luckily, there's a lot of smart kids out there too, though, that know that that's all a farce.
Yeah.
But more power to those people who are able to expose themselves on the internet and show
Sure.
a piece and sell it. Like if they're doing it, it's no skin off my back.
Oh, absolutely. But it can create a false sense, right?
Yeah.
That like that you're gonna be able to repeat that and turn that into a business
Yeah.
when maybe you're not.
Yeah. Like one T-shirt graphic isn't gonna do it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Absolutely. What about you, man? Give us some updates. I know there's a new Pollen video. We had Adam on the
New
show. It's
Adam- there's a new
been
Pollen
6 months
album.
or something.
May 13th.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. That's a whole other like music, and or how I sort of see music and releasing music in 2016.
Yeah.
It's like very different from when I started making music.
Yeah, for sure.
And I guess I just want to release music. Like I don't want to create a brand. Like I don't want to do the stuff that you're supposed to do. Because that's what I do for my regular job.
Right.
So sort of this like
I
music
know,
is my like escape. It's like, oh, I'm gonna.
Well, the thing is, you have a day job.
Yeah.
You're lucky, but
Yeah.
there's like all these kids with a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
say no such thing.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
all no such does.
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
has to be other elements.
Yeah. I mean, I need
you need to tour. If you're not
Yeah.
touring, you're not making any money, and because you're certainly not selling
Yeah.
the records, and
Right.
it sucks. I'm not saying it's all about money, but let's face it, you have to feed yourself. You have
course.
to put a roof over your head, and if you want to continue doing what you're doing in terms of music, you have to have some kind of a cash flow stream.
Yeah.
So that's why I've seen like a lot, like all these people are doing brands.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I think the one like this album that we're putting out, because of I have a day job and I have other stuff that I do that like brings in income. I was like, all right, if we're gonna self-release this, like I'm gonna get a PR person and I'm gonna get a radio person, because if I just put it out there on my own, no one's gonna hear it.
Right.
But at least it gives us a little bit more of a chance of like at least. Oh, maybe we'll get a license out of this, or maybe, the right person will hear it and be like, oh, I love this. Like, come produce my record. You know?
Right.
So
Yeah, exactly.
that's allowed me to do it this way. Where in the past, I think the last record we put out was, 2011, 2012. For some reason, I didn't. I probably could have done it then too, but the stars weren't aligned. I didn't have enough foresight to like before the record came out to actually like get the people that would do it. Maybe I was like, oh, I don't want to spend that much money because I spent money on getting the record mixed, as opposed to. So I don't know. It's talk to me in 6 months from now about it, but I think it's a really good record.
Yeah.
We were top tune of the day on KCRW last Friday
Nice.
for Dark Tokyo. We have another single just came out, and there's a Moody Man remix for that, which I think will be like a big deal for like dance in the dance world.
Yeah.
People love Moody Man, so we're radio people in the UK are looking for premieres for that remix, which is weird because it's like, oh, it's a remix and people want to hear it because it's Moody Man, not 'cause
Right.
it's Pollen. So I gotta put my ego aside and be like, yo, that's part of marketing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let it go.
That's part of the game.
But I think we're up for like 2 like big premieres on BBC Radio. So, I'm not gonna say no, but it's we'll see what happens.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate you sharing your stories.
Hey, you're very welcome.
It's an amazing journey.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we always like to ask if you have a favorite DJ.
In terms of like club DJ or MC DJ, let's think.
Anybody that's
I like this cat. I mean, no, I'm not gonna front, man. I really love Jamie XX.
okay.
Yeah.
Dope. Nice.
I was gonna say Brodinsky as well, but Jamie XX, like for me, is like one of the most exciting DJs. I love what he plays. I love that he acknowledges music from the 70s and 80s. Like he plays shit that I'm like, how does this 26-year-old guy dig into the crates? And I'll see him play it on vinyl. Like every time he plays, I take the opportunity. So like right now, I think he's like one of the best DJs in the world.
Nice.
Were you at Coachella when XX played?
No.
Okay.
Uh-uh.
Yeah. Well, he turned it into a dance party.
Yeah.
That was one of the best concerts I've ever seen. But yeah, him, Brodinsky's probably like second right now.
Adam, you want? Sorry, please.
Yeah, I think I.
You want to give us an update? I know, but maybe there's a. Give us an answer. We'll see if it's the same as your last one.
I know. I think I said Cut Chemist. There's a Jibo the Pro was like
old school.
Like
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm thinking of like
Stretch Armstrong.
I would say Moody Man, DJ Harvey.
DJ Harvey's dope.
Are both,
and he's still doing it.
Yeah, great. I tend to lean towards like sort of older guys that have like can play stuff that like I've never heard but is from the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like but I think Jamie XX is really awesome.
Yeah. Super entertaining.
Yeah.
Have you seen him live?
I don't think I have.
Yeah.
I
don't think so.
No matter what age, he'll get you up.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of like Gaslamp Killer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit. I like listening to music, so to me it's almost about the selection.
Yeah.
I'm feeling Dean Blunt right now as an artist.
Who is it?
If you're curious.
Dean Blunt?
Dean Blunt.
Yeah, I don't know Dean Blunt.
Check that shit out, yo.
Okay. We gonna look that up.
Dean Blunt's good.
I saw him live a couple of weeks ago at Echoplex.
Okay.
Was it
And
smoky?
He basically turns off the air conditioning, fills the room with smoke. You can't see anything around you. This guy's like more of like a performance artist.
Oh, shit.
Seeing him.
Yeah.
But he's just incredible. He's a British cat,
Nice.
So I highly recommend Dean Blunt. Yeah.
We'll check that out.
Yeah.
Dope.
From an artist perspective.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. No,
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. What's I think we know where to find Undefeated, but anything we can promote?
Nah, you guys know what's up. I mean, if you wanna like see where the location's at, just go to undefeated.com. We have all the info there.
How many stores right now?
We have 5 in America, 5 in Japan.
Wow.
And then 2 web stores. We're opening in Phoenix in October.
Wow.
And we're opening a store in downtown LA next spring.
Oh, cool.
So we'll be at 7 by next spring.
That's big. Nice. Cool.
Cool, man. Well, thanks.
Thanks, dude.
Looking out.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, man. This is fun.
All right. That was good stuff. I hope you liked it. I know I did. Hey, if you're into the sneaker thing, check out our episode with Ryan Babenzian, the founder of Greats Sneakers, and also Josh Luber, founder of StockX, the sneaker trading app that's blowing up online right now. Come back next week for more Rebel Radio. My guest will be DJ Spider. This dude is not only very talented, but hilarious. So I think you'll like that one. See ya.